It is day 7 of testimony in the Dale Warner murder trial. I'm Melissa Andrews, a crime and investigative reporter covering this case. Dale Warner is accused of murdering his wife Dee in 2021 and then welding her inside an anhydrous tank where she was found 3 years later. I think this was our most productive day in court by far in terms of how many witnesses we got through and a lack of powwows in the back. We got through 6 witnesses today. So I'm going to divide this into morning and afternoon because these videos are getting really long and difficult to upload. So we started off this morning with our 17th witness of the case, the first for today, Jason Gravel. He worked at the Warner farm. He was a mechanic and did odd jobs. He said that he went to work on Monday, April 26th at 7 a.m. and Dale told him that Dee had left on Sunday evening. He also worked on Tuesday, April 27th. He was asked if he ever watched any surveillance video from April 27th, and he wasn't sure. So it became very apparent that Jason was having a very hard time on the stand. He was really not remembering a lot of things. And it came out later that he had a brain injury and had difficulty with memory. So in his testimony, he says he previously said he recalled moving a tank for Dale, but now didn't remember. Says he moved tanks regularly. He thought this tank was behind the burn pile, but then he was having a lot of trouble identifying the different buildings that we've seen on the property and where the burn pile was. He was shown a picture of the front loader, and he said it's probably me. Taking it to the spray barn, a tank, at 5:43 p.m. When asked why Dale wanted it moved, he said, I think he wanted it cleaned up. On cross-examination, it comes out about the brain bleed and the memory. Mary Chartier, who is the defense attorney, asked if it's possible that Mr. Warner told you that Dee left on Sunday morning. He said yes. She said, you've moved tanks for Mr. Warner before. He said yes. And then there was a jury question. Did Dale tell you to take the tank to the spray barn? He said yes. Our 18th witness, second for today, is Parker Hardy, Dee Warner's nephew. So Parker says he was told that Dee was missing around 1 or 2 o'clock on Sunday. He went to the Munger farm office where his cousins and Dale Warner were looking through the surveillance video, which several have testified to already. He drove the gator at the farm to look for her on the north side of the house. Something caught his attention, tracks from the front loader backed into almost the house. Like as far as you can get toward the house is where these front loader tracks were. And the Hummer was parked on top of those tracks. He said it was notable because how the gravel was thrown. It looked like it was moving fast and it was unusual for the front loader to be pulled up that close to the house. He was asked where the bucket would be. He said it would have been almost to the door on the porch. He said on his second visit that day, the Hummer had been moved back to the house. The seat was in the position of someone who was shorter. On Tuesday, April 27th, Parker is on a corn planter at the farm. He was purchasing fertilizer from Dale. He went into the spray barn to load fertilizer and saw the tank in the spray barn. He thought it was very unusual for an anhydrous tank to be in that condition on the Warner farm. Usually they're painted and there had never been an anhydrous tank in the spray barn. Dale meets with him in the barn and Parker is asked, did you ask Dale about the rusty tank? And he said, I did. And he said, well, what did he say about it? And he said, he told me that he has some of the employees bring in tanks at night because he was going to paint them because he was having trouble sleeping because his wife was missing. On cross-examination, he's asked about coming and filling up his own tank, an anhydrous tank, and what that process usually was. It was the last time he had any physical contact with his aunt, Dee, and that was on Friday. Remember, she was reported missing on Sunday. Did you see Mr. Warner drive by your house in the sprayer? Yes. Were you concerned that Ms. Warner took her own life? Yes. You drove from your property to the Warners? Yes. Where was the Hummer when you first saw it? The office, later on in the back of the house? Yes. the JCB, which is the front loader, tracks up to the house. You didn't see the reverse tracks. No. She said, was that noticeable? Yes. On April 27th, you saw the rusty tank in the spray barn and you didn't see a non-factory weld on the tank. And he says, no. And then the attorney says, would you have noticed that? He said, I didn't look at the specifics, only noticed an old rusty tank. They say, you didn't see Mr. Warner behaving unusually with it. And he said, correct. And the 19th witness is Jordan Graves. It's our third for today. He works for the FBI in the Detroit field office. This is very interesting, his testimony. He was really great on the stand too because he made a lot, he looked at the jury quite a bit and he was very clear. He said that he was asked in late March of 2025 to enhance some audio of a recording in this case. This is where Detective Greca comes back into the fold. Apparently, Detective Greca was on the scene on Tuesday, April 27th, and he was wearing a body-worn camera. This guy, Jordan Graves, the FBI guy, says it was at one point separated from the people in the conversation. It was muffled with a background noise. The camera was placed in the car with the door closed. Why would a detective who's having a conversation and at this point is talking to Jaron Warner, we can see in the pictures, allegedly, we can hear dogs being mentioned. Dogs are being brought to Munger Road as part of a search warrant with drones. Then Detective Greca removes his body cam and puts it in the car and shuts the door. So the audio of when the camera is in the car is what now needs to be enhanced by the FBI in order for us to hear it. The problem is no one in the courtroom that I talked to really could understand what the audio still was after it was enhanced by the FBI. Can the jury go back and listen to it in the deliberation room? I believe they can because it's now an exhibit, but apparently there was a transcript that was trying to be introduced of what exactly was said, and the judge just felt that the audio was enough. So whether or not they think to go back and watch what was said, they will know. So anyways, this FBI guy, the forensic examiner, digital forensic examiner, said he may have worked on this clip for a couple of days. He said he doesn't clarify words. He just makes it easier to hear and he does not change the dialogue. So I'm going to do the next three witnesses of the day in another video. In terms of Detective Greca, though, and his conversation, which apparently involved telling Jaron Warner that dogs were on the way to the property, how problematic is it that we have not heard from the lead investigator in this case? At this point, we've talked about Detective Greca several times. We've seen him interviewing Dale Warner on body cam. We now have an allegation that he removed his body cam during the execution of a search warrant. Does the jury need to hear from him? Because I'm thinking, if I'm a juror, why aren't we hearing from him? And I've seen cases where the lead investigator is problematic, and sometimes you don't call him because it's more trouble than it's worth, but that name has to be occurring to the jurors, and they have to be wondering, why are we not seeing the lead investigator in this case? 20th witness, this is after lunch on day 7. We're on our 20th witness, the fourth for today. His name is Ryan Rank, and he is the former Madison Township fire chief. He's a hazardous material instructor who was called out to the farm on April 27th. So this would be 2 days after Dee was reported missing. It was a Tuesday, the 27th. He was a member of the county drone team. So he actually went out twice that day. He says you can take pictures or videos with the drone, and the cellular device that you're using along with the drone is what creates the timestamp. So he says that they switched from taking photos to videos because Dale returned to the property and we wanted to follow him. It is Dale operating the front loader, hauling an anhydrous tank. So I want to pause here a little bit to give you context. So Tuesday is the day that Detective Greca told Jaron Warner, allegedly, that we're going to bring the dogs out to look around and the drones. This is when Detective Greca removes his body cam, as we saw today, places it in the car, shuts the door, and continues to have conversation with Jaron Warner. The FBI is brought in to analyze the audio of that video. We couldn't clearly hear it in the courtroom, but I do believe, because it's been admitted into evidence, that the jury can go back and listen to it when they're deliberating. So it's at this time that Ryan Rank is at the property, and Dale comes back and he starts to move around. So that's why they did the drone video. He was asked, how do you know it was Dale moving it? He says, from overhearing interaction with Detective Greca and a lieutenant earlier. He's asked, did you become familiar with anhydrous ammonia? He said, yes, due to my line of work. He talks a little bit about it. And then he is shown this picture, which I think every time that it's been shown, the defense attorney, Mary Chartier, objects. He is asked if this is an example of a chemical burn on this body cam of Dale Warner on April 26th. That would be the day prior. He says, no, there's an objection. Jackie Wise, the prosecutor, moves to qualify him as an expert on this. Because I don't think he was allowed to say, forget what the legal term is, but he was not allowed to say his opinion on this. And I thought that the defense, Mary Chartier, did a great job. She says, no, he can't be qualified as an expert right now. We don't have his CV. We haven't put him through the whole process that we usually put people through when we qualify them as experts. So that was, he could not be qualified as an expert. They had to move on from that. He was asked, have you ever observed an anhydrous tank with this design? He said no. So on cross-examination, I didn't understand where they were really going with this. They asked, why would the fire department chief get training in anhydrous and hazardous materials? I thought that was pretty clear because there's a bunch of farmers in this area and they work with all types of chemicals. So it made a lot of sense to me, but maybe there was something more to that. Asked like why a fire truck would be there when the tank gets cut open. I felt like that was pretty obvious in case there's a spill or some sort of fire, or I don't know, someone can pass out, I guess, and you are rendering first aid. He was asked, did you lighten the drone photos? He said, no. You didn't sneak onto the property? No. You were visible to Mr. Warner? Yes. So that's the defense saying that you guys were pretty much welcome here and he wasn't hiding anything. So we break for lunch, we come back, and we get to the 21st witness, the fifth for today, Dale Sharp. He is a Lenawee County Sheriff's detective, and he assisted Detective Greca on the case. So he is on the scene of a search warrant on 4/27 with Detective Greca, who was the lead detective, who has not testified, who is in charge of the scene and what's collected, making sure the scene is secure. They get to the property around 8:30. He personally was not wearing a body camera. His role was to photograph the buildings. Detective Greca and Jaron were there. Greca made contact with two young females at the house. He appears to be at the house. He had the body cam on, and we saw him talking to two girls at the door. Detective Sharp says, we have a search warrant for the dogs and the drone. Greca appears to be talking to Dale on the phone regarding the search, saying this will shut up the other side of the family. And Dale, apparently on the other end, we couldn't hear. He apparently said, no, it's not going to shut them up, because then Greca says, yeah, it's not going to shut them up. I'm wondering, how is the family feeling about hearing this? So Sharp is in the body cam with Jaron. Detective Greca comes down and talks to Jaron, asks if he's a family member, then takes off his body cam, which I've gone over in the previous video. But, this is a problem for the lead investigator to do this, and then for the prosecution to have to bring in the FBI to enhance the audio because the lead detective removed his body cam. So you can hear them talking, and Greca is talking about dogs. He puts the body camera in the car and then closes the door, continuing the conversation outside of the car. And that is the audio that needed to be enhanced by the FBI. So Sharp is near the rear of Greca's car. Sharp says Greca asked Jaron if he knows when his dad will be back. There was an objection to this by Mary Chartier on hearsay. Sharp goes around the property taking pictures. He remembers that tank in the spray barn. Dale is moving the anhydrous tank and puts it in that building and takes another one out. Doesn't know where he put it. Notified Detective Greca about this. We were told to allow Dale to continue operating the farm and not interfere. Again, as a search warrant is being executed. Our 22nd witness, the sixth for today, is Justin Schmidt. He is a welding teacher and welding expert, a certified welding inspector. And I think he was necessary for the prosecution's case, and I think he drove home some points. So he was certified as an expert in welding by the judge. Michigan State Police asked him to do an inspection on the tank. He said that he looked at it 4 times. The first time he looked at all of the welding, the second time the inside. He saw the repair weld on the first inspection. The third time he came back to look at a portion of the tank, and the fourth time to compare the tank. He said there was an obvious repair weld. The first time he saw it, the front end was removed. You could see the remnants of a factory weld under the repair weld. He took a measurement of like the factory weld and then the repair weld, and you can see the difference. He said this person used a spool of wire. Apparently there's a stick welder. I don't know if that's the right term, but he used a spool, whoever did this. There was lots of human error. It was not an automated process. It was clear to him that they used a larger machine, not a hobby machine. This was someone with prior welding experience, but not formal weld training. He said it could have been a rush job. This is the second time we've heard of an angle grinder. But this time to grind down a high spot in the weld first. And then you would use a welding mask, cap, PPE, heavy duty gloves, a welding jacket, and sleeves. If your skin is exposed, you would see burn marks and evidence of UV light burns. He has shown that picture again of Dale Warner's arm and said that is very indicative of a burn. He says you could weld 6 to 10 inches per minute. So the quickest it could be done for 128 inches is 21 minutes. And the longest, of the slower side, he said was 36 minutes. With the starts and stops, he said that can vary from a few seconds to longer. And then he used some experiments to come up with a formula to calculate around 2.5 inches per minute. He said this could be done by one person if they had the proper tools and equipment. So to be honest with you, after he testified, I'm thinking this defense attorney has got to ask, like, where are videos of you conducting these experiments? Did you do an experiment using 2 people and then 1 person? Did you do an experiment with a person maybe holding up the material and then one being in the cradle, like was described? I just felt like the cross-examination did touch on experiments, but I was kind of expecting her to really take him through the ringer a little bit more on what I want to see your work. And did someone check your work? All of these questions, I thought she was going to do more. She did mention in the experiment how loud it would be. He said, your neighbor would probably hear. She said, you've never welded a tank like that shut. Did you do experiments? Would cutting or welding cause sparks? So I think this was really interesting. Mary Chartier brings up in September of 2024, he saw enhanced photographs of the tank. On February 9th, 2026, when trial was already underway, you were with Mr. McCready, who is the assistant prosecutor, and Detective Dreyer, And you claimed you could say there were consistencies between the two only at that meeting after the trial had started. So he had spent time with this tank on 4 occasions. So that was good that she got that in. I also want to quickly show you some photos that were shown to this welding expert of Dale Warner having some of these materials that he could have used on his property at the time. The welder said that basically all those things could be used for a project like this. And then I also think it's really important to know when it comes to experts, whether or not they're paid, because the questioning that it ended on was that he didn't see consistencies prior to when the trial was already underway. So on redirect, I think the prosecution did a really good job because they asked, how many hours did you spend on this? He said 30. They said, have you been hired or received any money at all? He said, no. They said, did anyone tell you what to say? He said, no. So I think it's always important to know if an expert is being paid. They're supposed to tell the truth, but who is paying them? The judge then ends the day by telling everyone, okay, we're going on a field trip tomorrow. They're going to go see the tank. It's at a secure location. They're going to the Munger Road property and the Paragon Road property. The jurors are going to be taken on buses. We do know that. We have a lot of restrictions as to what we can show. So I will show you the properties, but I won't be able to show you the setup even or the buses. So I will go and visually look at it and then bring you a video tomorrow night after the visit.